I always love to ask this question, especially as a scientist. How do science and belief in God go together? How
Yeah.
can they go together? That's a real paradigm shift for you. Um, so if you could explain that, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Well, I mean, this was one thing that bothered me also about belief as a kid was this sort of this kind of I felt this was just my perception. I don't actually think it's true, but my perception was that there was like this rejection of curiosity. It's like, hey, we've already got it all figured out. Here's the book, and so why explore all these other things? So that drew me to science, and then I found the same closed mindedness in science. And now, with a much deeper understanding of what science used to be, and of the Bible, I I think it is kind of obvious to me now that the two go together. I mean, first of all, um, I I got the impression that Jesus encouraged curiosity. He surrounded himself with 12 people who were constantly asking him questions, and there was never this like stern rejection of question asking. I never felt that, and so that didn't. So right off the bat, I'm like, okay, so my initial impression that this book, the Bible, rejects curiosity is not true. And also, these scientists, I mean, the subject of the book, these physicists, a lot of the things they were discovering kind of rhymed with stuff I was reading in the Bible. And we don't need to get into all of the details, but this idea that belief is central to reality. I mean, of course, Jesus says that over and over and over again. That's this recurrent theme. When he calls the disciple, is it Peter, I believe, to walk to him on the water, and as soon as he has doubt enter his mind, he falls into the water, right? And the mustard seed being able to move the mountain with the faith. I mean, this is just all about how belief influences reality, and this is what all the 20th century physicists were saying in the 20s and 30s, is that our perception and our observation and our belief influences physical reality. So I thought was fascinating. And then I found out that the scientific principles of thermodynamics tell us that we shouldn't have this beautiful ordered world that we live in. And it just rings true in our life. I mean, what happens if you know I would love, say I have a home in the mountains, and I go there for 6 months to write another book, and I come back to my house. It's going to be overrun. It's going to be deteriorated, and there's going to be weeds everywhere in my garden. And it takes intervention to maintain order. And that's the second law. We shouldn't have this pocket of complexity that we live in unless someone reaches in and manipulates it. And so, yeah, all of these foundational scientific principles. I mean, I talk about photons and how information can be transferred over any distance. And you start reading the modern scientific explanations for these things, they sound like religion. Like Federico Fagin, amazing physicist, invented the CPU. So this is not, a fringe guy by any means. His current explanation of reality is that we're like a drone where the real conscious perspective exists somewhere else and is receiving our viewpoint, our perspective, through a quantum field. And I'm like, man, that sure sounds like a spirit animating the flesh. Like, how would you describe quantum field theory to someone 2,000 years ago? Not like that. And so you'd say spirit animates the flesh. And I'm like, okay, well, the scientists, they're now trying to come up with a substitution to Christianity, I would say, using scientific vocabulary. Maybe because they don't want to swallow their pride, right? But I'm willing to accept that maybe actually the Bible was telling us this stuff all along, and that's a call for me to be more open-minded. Maybe science actually supports the themes of the Bible. And maybe we can, as humans, sort of tease apart the mechanisms of how things work. I don't think we can ever actually fully understand God or souls or spirits, but at the very least, the modern scientific explanations are not refuting those concepts. I think they support them. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, it is I just love that you are sitting there as someone who, again, is very highly trained. You are scientific. You love science. I think you say that. You say it in your book. You've said it here today. You love science. You're not dismissing science. You're just putting science in its rightful perspective. And actually, I think showing how science can actually lead to more. That
I think so.
if we are open minded and curious and willing to look, again, your book, I just so highly encourage it. It's to look beyond our normal ways of thinking, of just merely computational, you know, ways of considering science, and looking beyond and into the mystery of quantum mechanics, and and what that might reveal and what that
Yeah.
might imply. There's just so much there. There's a lot of mystery, but I also love the way that you're pointing to an adequate cause for what we're seeing, and order and fine tuning and life and complexity and language, code, all of those things. There has to be a sufficient cause.
We're
Um,
if I might add to that,
yeah,
we're living in a weird time right now because we're like in this transitionary time where I think rational atheism, Dawkins, Hitchens, that sort of we're kind of moving past that. And I am a little bit nervous for science and my colleagues in science that they recognize the flaws in their worldview, but rather than embrace uh, a, a different, older explanation, the Bible, um, Jesus, they're kind of trying to make a new scientific explanation that they still say is a different and better explanation, but they're using like supernatural uh, things that we traditionally would have dismissed, like quantum entanglement and the fact that maybe matter isn't really there when you're not looking at it, and they're trying to construct a new explanation that explains some of these unexplainable things without using the word God for some reason.